Do you reckon it's better like light off? Like coming from my dungeon.
Yeah, turn the light off. Turn the light off.
This is the light off.
No, that's a light off?
Yeah. The light on, light above.
Light on is better. Much better. Yeah, the light off is like, it does look like you're in like...
Hello and welcome everybody back to the Unily Podcast. It's great to have you all back with us. We've been away for a short while as we ran our Unite Employee Experience Conference. We're really glad to be back doing the podcast again. And I'm joined on the podcast today by our new resident superstars, the hosts of the Unite Employee Experience Conference. I'm so glad to have Kaz, Caitlin and Sanika back with us. Caitlin, how have you been since Unite?
I have been well. I had a total adrenaline drop after the end of that week that I was recovering from for a few days. But no, it's been awesome. It's been really cool with all the buzz following it. And, all the recorded sessions look great afterwards. And I'm just avoiding watching any moments of myself from those sessions. But no, doing well.
Good. Glad to hear it. Sanika, have you watched any of your footage back yet?
You know I did. And I have notes 2022 coming back strong. But no, I've been really great. I'm super excited. I think we did such an amazing job at Unite. And we just, all our clients coming together. It was really great. Kaz, how you been?
Okay, I was going to say, it doesn't surprise me. I probably got it on repeat like you, just on autoplay. Being good. It's kind of nice to be back on the podcast actually, because I feel like doing that has brought us all closer together. It was definitely a really fun experience, and you build a lot of rapport. So it kind of feels nice for us to be back on a podcast format, stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be fair to say as well that Unite was absolutely incredible. Sessions were amazing, but a few ups. Well, no, loads of ups, a few downs, I should say, just only a few.
This is all part of the anticipation and the build-up. Hi Louis, how are you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Just a few downs, not too
many. The joys of a live conference.
I know, right? And I remember as well on the third day, I was just saying live. And Kaz was like, you keep saying live quite a lot, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just want to make sure they don't think it's all pre-recorded because, those studio lights were hot. But go on then. So Kaz, throw it over to you first. What were your favourite bits, and were there any bits that kind of caught you off guard?
Yeah, so I think for all of us actually, every day that went past, the more we kind of got into the groove of presenting and knowing where to look and bouncing off each other. And I think that comes from experience, because obviously none of us are inherently presenters. We just kind of make it up as we go along. So I think it was definitely harder than I expected it to be, because you've got the camera, you've got your virtual guests, you've got your presentation, there's so much going on. And I definitely feel like I fine-tuned those skills by the end. So definitely learned something there. But in terms of the content, I think I probably have two highlights. One was, of course, my session with Tan, who was even I knew he was going to be really authentic and genuine because I'd spoken to him before and he's always like that. But he really brought it. And it just felt like a really natural conversation. That's what I really liked about it. My other kind of not as tangible fave thing was just the buzz of being live. And I know obviously that has its peaks and troughs, but you get so much more adrenaline from just being in a studio and we're counting down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just having people around you. It's quite exciting.
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, your Tan session was, definitely up there best moments of the conference. There are loads of great sessions. Maybe that's unfair on the other sessions. It was cool, however, to see you interviewing Tan. You guys had a really good rapport. I'm pretty sure I remember him complimenting Kaz's outfit as well.
Yes.
I was like, that is high praise.
Tan France is live here with us. Can you hear me, Tan?
Hello, mate. Yes, I can. How are you?
Hi. Good to speak to you again. How are you?
So well. So are you? Looking very chic.
Thank you. I'm inspired by you. In all of our intro shots, you've got your turtleneck on. So I was like, oh, I've been inspired. So I need to rock up in a turtleneck today.
Oh my gosh. When I heard that, I was like, oh man, that would throw me way off. Like, that, yeah.
I was like,
we
retire happy now.
How many people could say that Tan Francis called them chic? Like,
yes.
honestly.
I was like, now we know what to get Kaz for Christmas. You know, everyone wear "I'm chic" on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my God.
that, like
So here.
you can
I'm
never
chic,
come
Tan
down.
I mean, like, you know, that could literally be a quote on the T-shirt. You could have Tan France's name on it, I think.
Yes.
Like, that's amazing. No, that was awesome. That was amazing. And, you know, every one of you, like, were incredible hosts. Because I know that, you know, throwing it out to you, Caitlin, I know that the lights in your studio especially were generating heat equivalent to that of the surface of the sun. So,
Yeah.
how
I
did you
did
find
describe it like that, didn't I? It was the surface of the sun. I even the heat by the end caused an actual like I think I told you guys right before we went on at one point. I was like, my brain has melted. I don't know what's happening, and that's when, of course, I had my Oscars moment where I announced the wrong winner. I'm very proud to announce that the best crisis response was Nats.
Yeah.
So they launched a dedicated COVID and well-being support site.
Well, these are the runner-ups, Caitlin. This is not the winner. These are the runner-ups.
Okay.
Yes.
For our poor clients. Who, all respect to them, I was so excited to give you your awards and all the hard work that you've done that I said the wrong name. So, but I'm a beginner and I'm learning, but it really was such a great experience. And for me, like, from the speakers, I got a lot out of all of the speakers in the sessions. I didn't know a lot about Fern Cotton actually before. Just stateside, she's not as well known, but she was super engaging, like very much made me want to, watch some more of her content actually, because I thought her thoughts on, how we're all, like, nobody has defined happiness kind of really yet was a really interesting point that kind of like made me feel better almost.
Please tell us the secret to happiness, Fern. What is it?
Such a huge question to start with. If I knew the answer, I would just give up all of this now, because I think I'm just forever searching for that answer. And I think there isn't really ever one answer. There's bespoke answers for the individual, there's collective answers for groups of people in society, but I don't think there's one solution ever. I think the nearest I've come to figuring it out is probably liking yourself, I think, is a real key component to feeling well daily.
It was an interesting takeaway from it. But also just from, like, since it was, after all, an employee experience conference, like, I have to say, it was one of the first times that a lot of people from Unily actually got back together in the office so that we could cheer everyone on. Seeing the buzz in, like, our Ishing office and the New York office for the watch parties was really cool. And then the after parties were super fun too. So that for me was actually, like, my favorite part of it. Yeah. Was having everybody get together again after a really long time apart.
It was amazing. Do you know what, as well, like, going back to the awards bit, the takeaway for all our clients should be that you're all winners in Caitlin's eyes. That's why she said that you were the winner.
See, that's the difference between me and you. You're more seasoned at this, and you would have thought of that. In that moment, for me, I was like,
It was, no one noticed. I think it was like, totally went under the radar. So that's good. But no, I mean, like, do you know what? It was really cool being able to, like, say, literally, let's go check out what's going on with our, hosts in New York, and throwing it out, like, to you, Sanika, like, you buzzing.
It was, I actually think I love that part, that the fact that I felt like we were very much united, you know, although we were live and in two different, you know, countries essentially. Like it was really nice. And seeing the watch party, like Caitlin said, I think it's just like bringing back that Unily feeling, you know, after being apart for so long. That was really nice. I think all of like the excitement of the countdowns, and it was a really good experience. I think it's something that you have to experience to kind of know the full grasp of it. And like Caitlin said, in addition to the lights, it was like no AC. We were literally in a box. So the fact that I knew my name on day 3,
and
you're
we're still
welcome.
talking about
it. You're welcome.
I gotta say, newfound levels of respect to both of you when I heard that your coffee order went awry on day 1, and you going into it from a 4 a.m. wake without caffeine. I was thinking they got it harder than we did.
Who do you think was the biggest diva amongst all of us? Because I actually think it was.
Who do you think it is?
Well, I don't think it was Matt and I can tell you that.
I know exactly who you think, because I was side chatting, guys. I know you think it was me. I know you think it was me.
No comment.
I swear I blow maintenance. I swear I blow maintenance.
That is hilarious, because I know that's funny.
That was good. It was good. Do you know what though? The thing is like, you know, all the antics aside, the coolest thing was when we were walking through the studio, and then I saw for the first time Caitlin and Sanika on the live feed, because on the first day we weren't seeing the live feed.
Yes.
And then
Yeah,
I saw
neither
you
would
guys
we.
with New York behind you though, like Statue of Liberty, like flying around on the green screen. I was like, these guys look so professional. You were killing it. Honestly, it was really.
And you were dressed for it too as well.
Yeah.
I know,
Thank
and
you.
I actually heard from people, because obviously I had family and friends tuning in
Of course.
my 15 minutes, and they were like, did you guys coordinate your outfits too?
Yeah.
And we didn't.
Yeah, it
The four of
literally
us,
looked like
none
we
of
did,
us
yeah.
coordinated our outfits. We just obviously are all. Unily has a way of hiring people who are different but also a lot the same, and clearly we were all on the same wavelength.
I
with
know, it
planning
was
for that.
so interesting. I thought that was really cool. Every day we would come downstairs and be like, oh, well, that works. Like, it was really funny, but I thought that was cool. And you guys look great. You guys really do look great in London. I was like, they look so cool. I bet you their air conditioner is on.
To be fair, it did get hot after a while, but we heard from our studio that it was particularly hot in your studio.
It was.
It literally had a global wire of complaining.
No, but it was absolutely a great experience. And I thought, I think when our speakers, you know, we saw our speakers on that live feed, I think that's when everyone really came alive and then like remembered why we were there and the conversations that we were driving with our clients. Like, I think that session with Crayola was really great. And, you know, seeing David have that conversation with J&J in the studio in New York was really, really good. That J&J conversation really, I think, really expanded the way people are looking at their environments and what they think of an intranet. So it was really good that regardless of the chaos, when we got into these sessions, like we were grabbed, right? I feel like I got all the feels with Kaz's session with Tan. Like I walked away like I was like, he's such a fan and I love it. Like you could tell you were laughing and like you was just so it was so cute. I loved everything about it.
Matt, were you more nervous to talk to Louis Theroux or Will? Which one were you more nervous to talk about? Our engagement automation coming up with our CEO and co-founder, or with Louis Theroux?
I mean, like the thing about Louis, he's a seasoned professional, so you always get a little bit of a safety net in that he's done it all before. So technical issues or anything like that, right? He's just gonna roll through that. You know, he like even said straight out the bat, the really like great thing he did there was he was like, the title of his session was, you know, establishing a connection in the digital era, you know, with the storytelling aspect. And he comes straight in and he's like, oh, you know, what irony that, you know, we're here to talk about like trying to, you know, establish a connection in the digital era, but we've been having connection issues off the bat. And then he just rolled straight into it. So with Louis, you know, and he has a a really unique perspective, I think, on, you know, the world. And, you know, a lot of that comes across in the content that he produces. So with him, he kind of, you know, I did very little really in terms of guiding that conversation. He just had a lot to, you know, to throw out there. I think with Will, there's increased pressure because obviously, you know, our CEO.
I'd like my job after this. I'd like to still be employed here at Unily after this conversation.
yeah. Like, so, like, I still have to work with the man. So, and you know, and then obviously we'd had a bit of a laugh building it up beforehand. But little did you know, the pressure behind the scenes was mounting.
No. I can imagine. Yeah, and just. Not only that, but doing a live demo on a live stream event, like, that is a lot. Like, there's never, like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Perfectly, yeah.
Yeah, it did, which is unheard of. Like, a live tech demo going well without a hitch it doesn't happen. So that was really, really awesome.
Somebody did ask, they did say, that went so smoothly, you switched to a recording, didn't you? I was like, no, that was all real.
You should say, like, and these are my sweaty palms to prove it. Like, I actually did that. Yeah, but you did a really, really good job. I was so proud of you. I was like, oh my gosh, look at the demo.
You did amazing.
You did really good.
And the extra factor there, not to blow my own horn too much, but
but
I'm going to say it. The extra factor there with that demo was the timing. Because obviously engagement automation, which we'll come on to momentarily. Stick with us, stay tuned in. We'll come on to that in a moment. But it's all about planning events in advance. So it's not like normal demos where you can kind of click a button and something happens. It all had to be pre-scheduled, pre-planned around a conversation which was going to be X amount of scripted time, but who knows on the day, plus 2 videos thrown in there for good measure. It made like the whole you know, execution of it a very time sensitive thing. So that was another extra thing to contend with, but I am incredibly happy and relieved that it kind of went the way it did. Yeah, you know, a big breath of relief there, so it was good. I have to say, just on one other session as well, and Kaz, obviously you were part of this one too, but the Fern Cotton interview especially was really cool, because, you know, I think you know, really bringing health and well-being, you know, out there and talking about it openly on, you know, a relatively big kind of forum and platform with somebody who knows about it, talks about it all the time. I thought that was like really meaningful, you know, in what many businesses are trying to achieve with, you know, intranets and employee experience.
It felt super deep at the time as well, where it's like you feel that, and you're having that conversation. It's like, damn, this is deep, and like it's very rare that you go into that realm in these sort of conferences and stuff. So yeah, totally with you.
Yeah, and the timing of it definitely set the tone for the day. It definitely set the tone.
Yeah,
it was a great session. Great session.
So, well, I mean, you know, turning our attention back to Will's session briefly now, you know, I guess one of the cool things, as you said, was the demo and, you know, engagement automation, this new kind of feature. I mean, before we dig into you know, what the feature is, you know, Kaz, can you tell us a little bit, you know, like, we are really lucky to have you there actually during Will's session, because obviously as a product manager, you've been very close to the development of this. Can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration? You know, obviously we talked about engagement automation, but you know, you've been in part of the process for the whole time. Like, yeah,
so this was pretty much the first project that kind of landed on my desk when I moved into this role. So I feel like it's a little bit of my baby, or a little bit of my heart's gone into it. And the inspiration kind of came around from, we were super interested in how marketing had such innovation when it comes to automation. Like, you know, a lot of the digital interactions when it comes to customer shopping, for example, on like Amazon or ASOS, you know all those interactions are automated and they're smart. And I can't get the credit for this because a lot of people like Will and Matt did a lot of the stuff earlier, which was understanding like, okay, well, here's there's innovation going on in this era, and it's bedded down, like it's super popular, and there's a gap when it comes to internal communications, which says things are still really manual. It's, clicking to publish this, it's making this action happen, and it doesn't connect the dots in a natural way. And the reality is like each employee is on some sort of journey, which is, something's happening on a certain day and it's linked to another event, and it's linked to a news article, and it's linked to a form. Like there is a journey there, and that's something that marketing get really well, and marketing automation, to be specific, understand, is the connections that happen between a user and their journey. And perhaps with internal communications, that link hasn't closed yet. So that was the kind of underlying fire that was like, we need to try and close this gap and automate as much as we can, because we're just trying to save like internal communicators, HR people, we're trying to save them time to take out the admin effort and let them do the smarter stuff, which is plan those journeys.
Yeah, so I mean, Caitlin, that's a really good point, or an interesting point to explore there, because Kaz is talking about how do we save internal communicators time and effort. And I've always wondered this, obviously you speak to so many different organizations. Are they, do they often find themselves like understaffed? Well, understaffed may be contentious, but pressed for time. It's hard to.
Yes, and that's why I tell it's every size, every sector. Like there is not a single client or prospective client I've ever worked with or spoken to who's like, yeah, we have an army of like 100 people ready to go to populate content. Everyone's like, I have 2 people who have 2 hours a week to dedicate to this. Like, I'm exaggerating, but kind of. So yeah. Automation, as much as possible, like automation relative to engagement, AI capabilities, like auto publishing, auto governance, all of that people are interested in. But I think I said it at the conference too, like even with automation, with technology, you still need the human element behind it for what you were just talking about with the strategic planning. So you can have show cool things like trending topics and, recommended content and, have a lot of, and the automated engagement, but you still have to work together on a strategy of what that experience, the employee experience is that you want. Like, what is the end goal? Who are the personas behind it? And then, set the engine up, so to speak, that, Kaz and team have created and delivered. So yeah, I kind of find that those conversations really interesting. But absolutely for any company who is concerned, like we can't, this looks really great, but we can't possibly have an experience like this. You're in the same boat as like pretty much every other customer we've worked with. And that's why I also think it's become more and more popular to not just have like a team of, 4 to 5 or even 10 like internal communicators who are just running and owning everything. It's that kind of more broadly distributed governance model where you're making other people kind of accountable for the content experiences and management, but having that automation set up to guide people through those journeys in a way that makes sense is going to be, it's to use your word, Matt, it's going to be a game changer. It's with the accent and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Wouldn't have known the difference.
I would like to point out, game changer is a Glenn Chambers phrase. I would like, that's my position. I don't know. That's who I'm going to plant it on now. It's Glenn. Let's bring Glenn back to the podcast. You can tell us.
Pan to Glenn's surprise face.
Exactly.
He dodged tonight's podcast as well. Where is he? He should be here. We'll bring him back. Don't worry, I promise you people, we're bringing Glenn back to the podcast.
With him and the beach ball and the coconut.
And the coconut.
That was featured in Unite. 15 times if you joined us.
And let me tell you something. If you thought that, that under those hot lamps and everything else, that was difficult with those technical issues, they coordinated that zoom in on Glenn's face during the cuts of the New York party. And there we go. There's the New York crew. There they all are. And, perhaps we can get a little up close and personal. There he is. Man of the hour. Don't hide.
That was a last minute little fun thing too. Very last minute. I'm impressed that they pulled that off.
That took a dozen people to pull that off. That big zoom in on Glenn's face, just putting him front and center.
Took about 15 resources just to get that 5 minutes of glory. So worth it.
But yes, engagement automation, right? So, and that is it. That's the, I think Kaz and Caitlin, between you both, you've really kind of set the scene there. It is the ability to centrally orchestrate these multi-channel communication and engagement campaigns for your employees, and then track the levels of engagement and the impact of content across these various different channels, in a lot more of a unified manner. So rather than kind of piecemeal looking at, say, one news article, what that does is about how that ties together an entire journey of engagement that takes someone from point A to point B, or encourages somebody to take this end goal, this end action. And one of the things that Caitlin talked about there as well is it's not just about those smaller organizations or even larger organizations who have teams that are time poor. And I think, lots of people, have lots on their plate. But I mean, Sanika, you work with some very large clients of ours,
yes.
some of which were featured at
Unite. They were. I was so glad to see them.
I mean, what do you think things like engagement automation will mean to organizations at scale?
I think we have to coin the phrase, it will be a game changer, honestly, all jokes aside, because I think even throughout Unite, we saw with both our enterprise clients and our award-winning clients, right, that it was a theme. How many resources do you have dedicated to this site, right? All of our listeners were so amazed by all they can get done. And I think engagement automation is going to be it's going to allow them not only to set a real content strategy, but see it executed, right, weekly and daily, and no longer feel like that earnest is just on you, like you have that burden on yourself, but now you can really empower other users throughout the organization to contribute to that user journey that, sometimes as a front end user only, they kind of, they have gripes about, and then now you can now assign and, kind of encourage everyone. And I think it also unifies the culture as well. So, some of our larger clients, this is really going to be something that brings their digital intranet to another place. It really is. With between our integrations and now this, it's really going to set Unily at a different bar. We're going to be on a different bar with this one.
I agree. I think it's the advent of a potentially very significant shift in the way we view the overall employee experience, because especially with the automation aspect of it, it doesn't require you to always be at the helm, as we've demonstrated, but it also at the same time, I would argue, delivers an even deeper level of personalized experiences for users. So even though you might be enrolled in a specific campaign, the campaign can talk to you specifically, based upon, what you've done, what you haven't done, maybe. Kaz, can you tell us a little bit more about the kind of the multi-channel, the conditional aspects of the feature? Because I know you're very close to it.
Yeah. So we'll delve a little bit into like the specifics of the feature. So I guess, there are loads of kind of sub features of this, and we could probably spend ages on it. But two, I think, of the headline features is, as you mentioned, this kind of multi-channel approach. So, and this is where our kind of experience comes from. Unily experience comes from in working with clients and understanding, looking at the analytics. Is like, we know that different employees react differently to different channels. So we know that some people react better with email, some companies, email's super embedded, you get really good engagement. Others, for example, are much more mobile first, or you've got remote workers, and so you've got the kind of mobile app experience where you get better engagement. And even now, you've kind of got those information workers where apps like Teams and Slack are just the backbone of that day-to-day work. It's the chat. You've got those channels. So that was kind of the underlying thing. It's like, okay, well, we know that different employees react differently to different channels. And so we need to give internal communicators the power to power on or off different channels for different types of employees or different types of campaigns. So that's kind of what we did, is we basically took all those channels, put them in one place. So when let's say an internal communicator wants to build a communication campaign, they can pick for each type of communication, where is that going to head? Is that going to go in a direct message in Microsoft Teams, like an integrated notification? Is that going to be a push notification on the mobile app? Are we going to the good old trusty email? So like
trusty email.
Good old legacy
We
email.
can never get rid of it.
But I think that is such a good thing to call out from a marketing perspective, right? You're meeting your users where they are. You know, long gone are the days where you're like, how do we get everyone to the site? How do we get everyone into our intranet? How do we increase these users and kind of trying to push that traffic into your intranet? Now, you know, with this feature, we're going to meet them where they are and bring them in, opposed to push them in.
Yeah, so glad you brought that phrase up. Like, you know, go to where your people are. That's the whole multi-channel piece in a sentence, isn't it? Go to where your people are. We know they're using so many different systems. I have to say, I'm throwing it out there right now, Kaz, before you beat me to the reveal. The fact it can activate the Microsoft Teams chatbot and like message you like.
Oh, was that a spoiler?
No. We'll edit that out in the post edits. We'll cut that bit out.
Matt said, I saw your build up and I'm getting in front of it.
The chatbot stuff is cool. Anyway, sorry, back to you, Kaz. Tell us more.
Sorry, yeah, but that's a really important point, and I think we spoke a bit before about how we work with clients and like customer success managers, how we work with them, and it's about trying to mature on that employee experience model, and we kind of do that with the analytics as well. So let's say it's early days, you're running a campaign, you push out to different channels. We really want to try the analytics are really trying to put back to the campaign manager or owner to say, you know, these were the channels that were successful to you. And you can kind of slice and dice that by different employee groups. So you might find out, well, frontline workers, surprise, surprise, are probably, you know, might be better with different channels. And you can kind of use that to fine tune future campaigns.
Yeah.
But sorry, I got a bit distracted there because
I think the analytics piece of it, I'm surprised. I'm taking it all in with our listeners. You know, I'm just like, because you know I'm a numbers nerd, so that really piqued my interest. So I was just like, oh yes, tell them what's actually working.
Yeah, exactly. So because you said that, I was like, oh, I better mention this before I move on. But then the other thing as well is around that, as you mentioned, is like conditional actions or notifications or these sort of things. So we spoke earlier as how we where it started and looking at let's say marketing automation, and we'll all experience this as consumers, is that kind of journey where it's like, you know, you've put something in your Amazon basket and you get a notification to say, hey, did you forget to buy those
that abandoned cart notification?
Did you purposefully dismiss the CEO's message, Matthew? Beep. We're gonna hit you again. There'll be no avoiding this one.
And so that's like that's what we learned is like part of the key to successfully engaging employees is they need to be the right communication at the right. It needs to be the right communication at the right time to the right people. Yeah. We've kind of said that before, and the way you do that is that you don't spam people. You use things that are relevant to them, and so we built in this model into engagement automation, which is always kind of tracking and analyzing and knowing how if a user has engaged with something or not. So, for example, let's say you are looking for a feedback form. you want to get some feedback on an initiative, or it may be maybe getting some feedback on your intranet technology or whatever it may be. And you set up that form. And I'm sure we've all had that scenario where you filled in the form, you maybe did it on day 1, day 2, but then for whatever reason, you still keep getting loads of notifications or emails saying, don't forget to fill in the form. Or,
Yes.
And it's like, I did this.
Are you coming to the event
annoying.
or not?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like, yes, I RSVP'd. Get over it.
How do I unsubscribe from my own
Obsessed
internal
with me.
notification?
It's so cool. Go on.
And so that's exactly it. It was like, we need to take that annoyance out of the equation, because aside from it being inefficient, it's also just annoying to the employee and is not what you want to do for engagement.
Yeah.
So to kind of take that out, we built in this content goal model, which is understanding how users have engaged with content. So if you're an internal communicator and you want to plan an event to happen, let's say you want to send a follow-up notification, you can schedule that notification for the future and then say, only deliver this to people that haven't completed a certain piece of content. In that example, it may be only send it to people that haven't filled in that form. So it's just the most efficient way to really communicate.
And that's it. For those of you who stuck around so far in the podcast, we probably haven't said this yet, but that is it. It's that timeline. It's about, being able to plan a flow of events integrated with various different systems taking place based upon specific rules. And that's, that's the fundamentals of marketing automation as well. You look to X, so I'm going to send you Y, and it'll take place 2 days after the last event happened, and so on and so forth. And that's, I like the word flow to describe it as well, because it sounds very organic. You are genuinely going through like a very organic process of discovery, of completing actions, completing tasks, engaging with content. So I do like, when we talk about them as flows, it really kind of brings it to life. But what I always think is, the use cases are really where you're gonna, people's ears prick up a little bit on the podcast. They hear something they've been trying to do on their intranet for years, and we come in with that silver bullet. Caitlin, I'm interested. Use cases, what have you come across, speaking to all these organizations? Where do you think this is going to be powerful?
Well, I think, bringing it back to the overall employee experience, right? You have different experiences at different points in your tenure at a company, and everyone's goal now, especially with stateside, there's a whole thing about like the great resignation that's going on. People are switching jobs, and we know the cost that has on businesses. So everybody's trying to hire the best talent, retain the best talent. So you have to have stellar onboarding experiences. Everybody wants an amazing onboarding experience. I have seen so many really cool things that people have set up, or like kind of not so cool custom solutions that people have tried to develop. No, and everybody's looking for how do we get this right, and how do we communicate with people with the right content at the right time based on who they are, what they do, and how long they've been with us. But then there's so many other use cases for for people like large enterprise who have complex information architecture and a lot of content. Even if something's buried, deep in like the bowels of the internet or something, you can still include that in part of these, as part of these campaigns and engagement automation if it's relevant for people, for the right people and for the right purpose. So even something when you have an important, a lot of companies are going green. They have environmental initiatives. They want to communicate value-based campaigns that are going on internally and get people bought into it and involved in it. Executive communications about change management, organizational change management. You're introducing new tech. There's so many different use cases. Those are three of the ones that I've talked through with some of our prospective clients. The onboarding usually comes up first and foremost, but organizational change management is huge. So how do we properly manage communications and expectations with people as we're going through a lot of change, especially in the digital landscape, and still keep people happy and retain them? So yeah,
Do you know
That's
who
my
else?
2 cents.
I'll tell you who else really likes the idea of this for onboarding. Glenn Chambers. Glenn Chambers loves this for onboarding. Do you not remember on the onboarding podcast? We totally spoke about this with Glenn.
Yeah.
We're like, onboarding. Da, da, da.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it is true. Like your onboarding experience can make or break your entire employee experience and your commitment to a company. It sets you up for success or for failure. So getting it right is important. And we talk about too, like, we're not trying to recreate an LMS. We're not trying to recreate that experience. It's more about bringing people to the right places at times that make sense, and also, driving them to the places that they need to be. Even if
And
it's linking out to
expanding.
other places, right?
Yeah, and just expanding on that onboarding journey, right? I think we often immediately think of, new hires to the organization, but think about users onboarding to new divisions of the organization. When you're starting to encourage users to become content contributors, right? There's an onboarding experience there as well.
Yep.
And when organizations are going through mergers and acquisitions, and, departments are being consolidated, or, we are now servicing multiple regions when we were just serving one region, there's another onboarding experience. I think, again, just meeting your users where they are with relevant content in a way that you can set and not kind of, hover over the experience, but set and ensure that these users are informed, they're empowered, and they feel that culture that's not only in the office, but also on the internet, I think is important.
That's a really important point. When you put it like that, it's like it makes you realize that the employee experience is made up of all these journeys that are going on, whether that's the onboarding journey when you start, or whether it's everyone's going through different flows or journeys, whether that's moving or transitioning or a rollout of new technology. There are all these sorts of journeys that are going on across the organization, and they need to be underpinned by strategic communications. And that's what we're trying to, from a technology perspective, is support that, is like encourage communicators to plan out those journeys and experiences that are happening, and literally plan them as a timeline, because that's when the value comes in, is the thoughts of knowing what that journey is made up of and how you make that journey engaging and efficient.
Yeah. And 100%. I think it's so much value in having those, like you said, those written resources in, the proper information architecture, so that, all of these users feel empowered, right? There's so many times we onboarded to different divisions in the business, or, there's a merger or acquisition, and, as a professional, you're buttoned up and you're ready to go, but going back to the session with Fran, like just giving them information to feel empowered, and kind of like that imposter syndrome she was talking about, right? Just giving them all of that information, and, in a timely manner, to let them feel like we're still here, we're still encouraging you, you're doing great in this role, and, even contributing to the platform. So I think it's very important to meet not only the organization needs, but also the needs of your people.
Yeah.
Think about your employees.
I think that's 100%. That's absolutely it. There's a couple of actually use cases that sprung to mind there. Because for those of you who are still tuned in, if you're interested in this...
Matt's assumed like so many people have left. Yeah. He's like, I assume everyone's gone, but if you're still there, let's keep talking about
the last 2 people who are still watching, check this out. There's a shameless plug, but not really a shameless plug. If you are actually interested in finding out a little bit more about engagement automation and seeing it live, you can watch all of the Unite sessions on demand, can't you guys? Right, so you can actually skip past the bit with me talking, check out our CEO telling useful stuff about our business, because he killed it. He was really great, actually. Fantastic session from him. But then if
in
you
all
go
fairness,
to
the demo is like I'm quite a visual learner, so if it were me, I'd be like, I want to see that demo, I want to see what it looks like, and that's that's the real deal. Like,
yes, exactly. And that's a product launch. Yeah, live, exactly. And a product launch. So, because that's something we can all businesses can relate to. It doesn't mean product always in the traditional sense of like a product that you might sell to customers or consumers, but, internal product launches. If you're going to roll out a new social network, or you're rolling out a big new benefits platform or e-learning system, right? Those are product launches as well. And how you go about those, you want to drive people to do certain things, like read guides about the new system or about the new product you're going to start selling. You maybe want them to register for an event where they can find out more about that kind of product. Maybe it's a virtual conference, an internal virtual conference. There are all these different milestones and markers that you want people to kind of go through, for a product launch. And I think that's why, credit to other people than myself who chose the topic of product launch for the demo, but that's a really great use case. And the other one that I kind of thought that maybe Sanika might have thrown out there, but she's left it for me, which is great, is the intranet launch story, right? Every time, an organization is rolling out a new employee experience platform, a new intranet, they want to drip feed. They don't want to overwhelm. So they're like, on day 1, update your profile. Day 2, think about personalization. Day 3, do this, right? Because campaigns can be a week. They could be half a year, right? You can execute these timelines for as long or as little as you need to, depending upon the scope and scale of that kind of campaign. So the intranet launch one, I think, is absolutely classic. You can do all your thinking up front about where you want to guide people over X amount of time. And you can plan all of that so you're not kind of, for the first 2 weeks of your new intranet, sat at your desk waiting to click the publish button, on the next big thing. It's all kind of planned out in advance, which is obviously, another...
And you can actually use that to kind of launch these initiatives that's important for the organization, right? Like diversity, inclusion, and equity. That could be the month that you just drip information about what your organization is doing, and if there are volunteer opportunities or charitable organizations that you're contributing to, and how they can do, the feature, it can go on for days, right? We can talk about so many great use cases, but I think going back to what you said, that's why it's really important that we have our live crazy recordings available for 30 days, right? So just go ahead, check out the demo, start, I always love to tell our clients to get those wheels spinning, right? Think about those asks that have been on, your project timeline for quite some time, and it's just not enough time to get it done, right? In terms of priorities. And this is, I love a good quick win. This is definitely a quick win for many divisions throughout the organization. Let's finally launch that thing we've been talking about for the last 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to get it out there.
Yeah.
So so we talked about this a lot, and I'm hoping we get some view counts up on the recorded sessions. Also, if you have any good campaign ideas and you're watching the vlog version of this, maybe put it in the comments, put nice comments. But, just saying. But so what's up?
I love it. Encourage comments.
Subscribe.
Yes, give us a like.
Turn on the notifications. Click the bell icon.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Don't tune us out. So what's next, Matt? What's happening after this? You're our evangelist. Where do we go from here?
Do you know what? As an evangelist, I am often fed the information directly by product managers like Kaz. So what I'm going to do is quick sidestep on that question. Kaz, where's engagement automation going next?
So it's interesting because even since the beginning, we spoke about how we were inspired by looking at the latest and greatest tech that's out there. Even to this day, Will, our CEO, still drop me a random message on a Wednesday and be like, have you seen this? And it's always kind of pushing us to be aware of, as a product manager, you kind of have to be aware of the latest and greatest tech innovations, because that has to drive us as a company and kind of making sure that we're in kind of lockstep with the, maintaining our status as being as good as we are. Great, shouldn't I say? Yeah, outstanding.
Stay awesome.
Yeah, and so but one use case I kind of want to touch on is, and we spoke a little bit about this in the Unite session, so I'll touch on two. So one is because we spoke a bit about onboarding. So in our engagement automation, we really want to fine tune and make sure that onboarding journey is as enabled and slick as possible with engagement automation. So making sure that you can really enable the employee to go on their own journey to say, okay, well, once they've done this, then they go on to this, and then they go on to that. So that kind of really unique individual employee journey that's going on. But the other thing in terms of future that I wanted to discuss, and this came up briefly in Unite, but I'll give a few more details here, so it's not so you're getting extra value out of the podcast. It is, yeah, exactly. So it is worth tuning in because you do get some spoilers. So we spoke about, and where we really want to go to is like automated, so obviously that automated angle, but looking at recognition. So within the Unily platform, if you're a client, for example, you know that we have this concept of awarding peer-to-peer kudos, as well as the ability to award badges. So like top-down badges, it may be you're a fire marshal, or it may be that you're employee of the month, or you may have got the most kudos the most that quarter. That's something we do internally at Unily, is like who gets the most kudos gets a badge. And what we want to do is take the manual effort out of that. So you see the theme here is like identifying things where people are putting any manual effort in and saying, how can we help them automate that process? And we really want to do that with recognition, because it's like there's so much cool stuff to be had in recognition. And I just love, it's that kind of, it's not about badges being like this massive grand thing. It's about that kind of like instant, consistent type of recognition. It's like, hey, you followed 5 people on your intranet. You've become like, you've become an officer following, and then, oh, you may be a content contributor.
A follower.
You become a follower. A sheep.
Yeah.
You could do that. You could do that. So
Just kidding. I encourage following.
technically capable.
I love following people and getting notified about everything. Anyway, carry on.
But it's much more than that as well. So it may be you know, an intranet's only as good as its good content, right?
Yeah,
so you really want to encourage people
that.
to contribute content, and we have this mechanism within Unily where people can contribute blogs or insights. And what we would do is then say, okay, well, you can configure automated badges based on how the number of blogs that you commit. So you do your 5 first blogs, you get your blog beginner. You do your 10 more blogs, you get your advanced. And these are the sorts of use cases that we're looking at, is that kind of continuous reward and recognition that really helps to engage and drive a user to do certain actions. Because I'm a sucker for recognition. I just
Me
need
too.
that reward.
And with the automation too, you never like forget to do it. Then a manager is never going to forget to give their employee a tenure-based award or an subject matter expert award or badge or something, right? Or recognition.
You set it up once and then it's done.
Yeah, you have the strategy and it's done, and that is. Yeah, that's a powerful thing.
So I mean,
and I think it also points back to what we were speaking about earlier in regards to the concern around resources, right? How many resources can really make this space valuable to my employees? Like, how many resources do I need? And actually setting these initiatives, like, you've reached following, like, and, setting it set it and leave it alone. It allows these resources to like really dedicate their time and, energy to the articles and the content and the documents and the things that really matter to them in that space, right? If documents is your thing and you'd like to always be able to seamlessly find it, now, you can really spend that 2 hours a week on, making sure that your taxonomy is together and things like that. So I think the set it and forget it kind of, automation that we have in place will be really valuable for our organizations.
And I think that really for me is, I mean, as much as I would like the podcast to go on for 5 hours, I'm, conscious of time and I know we've got to wrap it up. But I think that is probably for me the biggest takeaway from engagement automation, from the ability to automate content, set goals for your people, take them on journeys that engage them bit by bit, that don't overwhelm, that nurture employee engagement over time, and then ultimately allow you to track things in a bigger picture sense than just how many views you got on an article. All of that makes up engagement automation, the right content to the right people at the right time and across the right channels, of course. All of it to me is about how do we make the parts of the employee experience platform where it's lots of clicking to get things done? How do you take away that burden to do what Caitlin said, which is, excuse me, to be more pause for dramatic effect. To be more strategic, right? That's it. You don't want to be burdened with, awarding the you published a blog badge every time. You want to be thinking big picture strategy for how I keep 10,000 frontline workers who don't necessarily feel connected, to an office, engage with what we're doing as a business, make them really feel how valued and how important they are to our business. That's what you want to do, right? That's the strategy piece. And it really just frees up all that time and headspace to really focus down and drill down on that part of the role of internal comms, HR, whichever department's going to take full advantage of the capability. And with that, I think it's
a good wrap.
I think that's a good
solid wrap.
Yes.
So as always, be sure to come back. Check out the next podcast, check out the old podcast, check out all the on-demand content from Unite 21. Yes, and you can check out the content on our website. And I'm making the promise. The end of this podcast, Glenn Chambers will be on the next one, so bringing him back in a big way.
The podcast is back and in full effect.
Exactly. Amazing, guys. So good to chat to you again. And I'm sure I'll speak to you all again soon.